Okay.
So we were talking about some of the difficulties that happen as we enter into relationships because we don't have a clear picture of the other person. We have kind of a manufactured picture. Well, things start to change when you move in together. When you're living with another person, you start to see what you maybe didn't see before during, let's say, that initial courtship, or whatever you want to call it. And now we start to have friction. And it seems to me that one of the problems with relationship is that couples don't spend enough time talking about how they are going to deal with problems. In other words, the process of dealing with problems. We sort of blunder into it. In other words, for instance, I may be doing something that is upsetting to you. Okay, so what's the process? Well, you might look at it and say, well, I don't want to make a big deal about it, so I won't say anything. And then I keep doing it. And then you may start thinking, well, he should know better, not to do that. Anybody would know not to throw their clothes on the floor, or, whatever. Maybe we go out together with another couple and I'm constantly interrupting you or something like that. And whatever it was really irritated you, but you don't want to say anything to me about it because if you do, I might get upset. You don't want to make a big deal about it. But then I do it again and again and again. And then you might in your mind think, he should know he's doing that on purpose. Why would he do that to me? Why does he cut me off when we're around other people? And on it goes. So that's one, quote, process for dealing with a problem. The process is don't say anything.
Right.
Now, eventually, if it gets to be really bad, you might just get really angry, and I'll wonder what's wrong. And now, again, we have a problem. There's no process. Okay, another process, and this was a process that I used a lot in my first marriage, which was just leave the room. If we're having a disagreement, it's uncomfortable, and I'm trying to get my point across and you're not hearing it. Maybe you're doing something that I don't like, or there's something going on, or maybe you brought something up to me that you didn't like, but we're in the middle of discussing it. But the discussion is uncomfortable. And because it's uncomfortable, finally I just get up and leave and walk out of the room. That's a process.
Yeah.
The process, what is it? So the first process is, if you see a problem, ignore it. But then if it continues, start to wonder in your mind what's wrong with this awful person for doing that, but still don't say anything. That's a process. Another process is, something comes up, you just start talking about it right away, you react to each other, the thing kind of blows up, and then if you're not happy with the way the conversation is going, you get up and leave the room. That's a process. Okay, another process is two people just get angry at each other and they scream and yell. You don't get anywhere, but they just scream and yell. And on and on we could go with processes for dealing with problems. But see, we tend not to sit down when there's nothing going on and talk about the process. Talk about how we can deal with disagreements, how we can work things out, how we can preserve relationship. We've said on other video segments that when two people enter into a deep relationship, whether it's marriage or some kind of partnership, there's a third person. Like giving birth to a baby, the third person is the relationship. And we have to nurture the relationship. So what we're talking about here is a process for nurturing the relationship, some way that we can keep from doing the same thing. Repeating the same behavior, expecting a different result is insanity. And so here we are. Any of these processes that I just went through, and there could be thousands of others, don't work. And if we keep repeating those processes, the marriage or the relationship will deteriorate to the point where it'll be gone at some point.
Yeah. Well, I remember a long time ago when we hadn't been married too long. We were going to go on a family reunion, and in those days, it's been a while back, you were a lot more quiet and reclusive than you are now. You were not as forthcoming. And sometimes when family would come around, you would be kind of quiet and
very quiet.
Yeah, and sometimes you'd go in your office and even work while family members were there. And then you would, come through the room, maybe wave or something. But you were not overly friendly. You weren't unfriendly, but you weren't overly friendly either. So, but I remember it was really quite a problem for me. And then we were going to have a big family reunion. We were going to rent a house and on the beach and get everybody together. And I kind of dreaded it because I thought, oh, great, because I didn't know how well you were going to do. So we sat down and I said to you, I'm concerned about this. I really want to have a good time. I don't see my family very often. And I really want this to be a special time. So I appealed to you, and said, what can we do to make this turn out right for you and for me, so that you have a good time, so that you don't feel uncomfortable, and so that I can enjoy my family and not feel like, oh my gosh, Roger is going to give them the silent treatment, and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, I think that doing that is an important process. In other words, if you've lived with somebody long enough, you can almost see it coming.
Yeah.
Here's a situation coming up, and in your mind you can imagine the worst. And then you hope that doesn't happen. Well, hoping isn't enough. And so your process, which I think is a good process, is before it happens, because you can't change what's already happened.
Right, and when you're in the midst of it, you can't do much either. It's happening right now, and it's harder then, and then the arguments could come up.
Yeah. I just got through watching a movie about time travel, and so this guy was trying to his girlfriend ended up she's in the hospital in a coma, and he got access to this time travel machine, and so he kept going back in time trying to do things in the past to keep this from happening. And it was the result of a drug overdose.
Oh, wow.
And he was just doing everything. He kept trying this and that, but we don't have a time machine.
No.
But in a way, what was interesting is he would go back to it. He'd say, okay, I'm going to go back just before the time, or I would go back even a year earlier to change some of the things that even got her getting into drugs in the first place. Or I'll go back to her childhood, to some traumatic events that happened. But each time he would go back, once he went back to that time, now he had a dilemma. He knows what's going to happen in the future, but he doesn't know what to do about it. And that's sort of the situation that you're in when you see something coming.
Like the reunion.
Family reunion is coming up, and you can imagine what might happen.
Yeah.
And you're saying, okay.
And all you have to go on is the past experience.
The past experience. And if I don't do anything, things could happen that could create a chain of events that could make this an unhappy experience for all of us, but for me especially. In other words, for you, you want the reunion to be a positive experience. You have in your mind how you want it to go, and you want it to be a positive family thing, and now you can see this creating a problem. So now you sit down with me to have a discussion. And in your case, I don't remember because it was a long time ago exactly what was said or what we did.
Well, we came up with a whole idea of goals, rules, and procedures, which I think we talked about in another.
Right, and we'll talk some more in this series about it. But
we had what are my goals and how are we going to proceed and that sort of thing.
Each of our goals. What are your goals? What are your goals for this family reunion?
Right.
A lot of times you don't think about it like that. Well, I don't have any goals. What do you mean?
But you do.
But in a way, I mean, you could wait until it's over and then ask yourself, did we have a good time or not? And that's kind of a crazy, haphazard way of, it would be nice before to say, what are my goals? At the end of it, what is going to cause me to say it was really great and productive and wonderful, so that we can make sure that we do those things?
Exactly.
Because otherwise we can fall asleep.
Yeah.
And if we fall asleep, anything can happen.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do in all of this, is try to make sure that we don't fall asleep and that we don't accidentally find ourselves in an unrecoverable situation.
We started late on this. We started late, and that's why I was concerned.